Shedeur Sanders dropping to the 5th round in the NFL draft? Let's talk about it. So obviously the NFL draft was this past weekend, and the big story of the weekend was Shedeur Sanders. Regardless of what you feel about Sanders, this was the prevailing story. During the college football season, many believed that he was going to be a top 5 pick, and then as things got closer, it was pretty widely accepted that if he didn't go 3rd overall to the Giants, he would fall somewhere between 9 and 21. But it was pretty well figured that he would go somewhere in the 1st round. In a not very top-heavy draft, it was a deep draft, but not very top-heavy like we've seen in recent years. And so as the clock ticked down and he wasn't taken at number 9 to the Saints, and he wasn't taken at number 21 to the Steelers, then he wasn't taken in the 1st round at all. We said for sure he'll go number 33 overall to the Cleveland Browns to start the 2nd round. He was still on the board at the end of the 2nd round. Still on the board at the end of the 3rd round. Was still on the board to start Saturday. And he finally came off the board at pick 144 in the 5th round to the Cleveland Browns. And sports analysts were indignant, talking about how unfair this was, how he'd been blackballed from the league, how this was collusion between all of the other owners. They didn't want him in the league. They didn't like Deion. They didn't... All of it. All of it. And regardless of how you feel about Shedeur Sanders, because I could sit here and make an argument for why he should have been taken in the top 10, or I could sit here and make an argument for why this spot is justified. But when I think about it, first of all, I want to mention, just because we saw an unprecedented slide, I want to talk about some of the other most notable slides in NFL history. And the first ones that come to mind are Aaron Rodgers, who was widely expected to be one of the top 2 picks in the 2005 draft and fell all the way to 24 with the Green Bay Packers. This was largely due to people believing that he was cocky and maybe not wanting anything to do with him in that vein. And he even spent 3 years sitting behind Brett Favre before he got a chance to start. And the other one that comes to mind is Geno Smith, who earlier in that college football season had started off by having one of the best seasons we've seen. We thought for sure he was going to win the Heisman. He cooled off a bit in the season, but we still thought he'll be a top 10 pick. We'll see him go early. And he slid to the 2nd round to pick number 39 to the Jets. So these are just 2 instances. Obviously nothing this intense. But there were many analysts who objectively said, look at his tape. His tape isn't more impressive than Cam Ward's or Jackson Dart's. Some didn't think he was more impressive than Jalen Milroe. And Milroe went well before Shedeur as well. But if you look at Shedeur's numbers, his numbers were pretty significant. He was among the top 5 in passing yards in 2024 with over 4,100. He had 37 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Colorado didn't have the season they were hoping to have. They did not contend for a championship. They were 9-4, but that was an improvement to their previous year where they were hovering around 500. But the reason I think this happened is because Shedeur Sanders has not been able to get out from under Deion's shadow. And when I think about it, Shedeur did have offers out of high school to go to the D1 schools we hear from the most. Alabama, Florida, Georgia, LSU, his father's alma mater, Florida State. But he chose to go play for his father at Jackson State and then transfer when his father took the job at the Colorado Buffaloes. So some of this is self-inflicted, but I think the real reason why we saw this is not a blackball. It's not because he's Deion's son, because one of the things I heard was the NFL doesn't like Deion. The NFL loves Deion. At one point, Jerry Jones talked to Deion about being the head coach of the Cowboys, and he wasn't interested. He wanted to stay at Colorado. But through some fault of his own, but mostly not, Shedeur Sanders has lived under the shadow of his father for his entire football career. He could have gone to Alabama, Florida, Georgia, LSU, Florida State. But he chose to play for his father. He chose to go to a lower school. He chose to go to an HBCU, and then he chose to go to a rebuilding Colorado school. And yes, he, along with Deion, helped make Colorado, and Travis Hunter for that matter, helped make Colorado a trendy pick for 2 years, but they weren't contenders. Shedeur could have been a contender. And no, that wasn't meant as a reference to Marlon Brando in On the Waterfront for all my movie buffs.
You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody.
He could have been a contender. He probably would have been a Heisman candidate if he had gone to one of those big schools. Because he put up numbers at Colorado and at Jackson State. But when your father is already this huge personality, and then you willingly choose to go play for your father at his 2 coaching stops, and then, and I'm not saying it's everything, but I do think it has something to do with it. When that program becomes all about social media and NIL and swag and telling players who are already there, you can go because we got this, and arrogance and everything that program became about, that's not going to help your image. And I do believe that Shedeur Sanders is cocky. The same way that Johnny Manziel was cocky. The same way that Aaron Rodgers was cocky and teams stayed away from them. I do think that scared some teams off, but that would get you like a 2nd round pick at best. We don't see teams scared off for 3 or 4 rounds, passing up on a player 3 or 4 times because of cockiness. We don't see that. I think it's a combination of he's cocky, his tape wasn't as impressive as some of the other guys out there. Dillon Gabriel went before him. Jackson Dart went before him. It was wildly expected that somebody would trade back into the 1st round for a quarterback. And when we saw the Giants do it, we said, oh, that'll be it, because we had him pegged to the Giants at 3. And they chose Jackson Dart. The Steelers chose Will Howard. The Browns chose Dillon Gabriel first. Other teams chose their quarterback before Shedeur Sanders was chosen. Maybe it's just they're better quarterbacks. Sure, Shedeur was top 10 in passing yards, but let's not skate past the fact that was in the Big 12, which looks a lot different than it did a few years ago before conference realignment, when the big boppers in that conference, Oklahoma and Texas, moved to the SEC. The Big 12 is not what it once was. It's not like it's the Clemsons, the Alabamas, the Georgias of the world. We're talking about a Big 12 that had 3-9 Oklahoma State, 4-8 Arizona, 4-8 UCF, 5-7 Utah, West Virginia, Kansas State, Kansas, Cincinnati. The top 3 teams in the conference were Arizona State, Iowa State, and BYU. 11-3, 11-3, 11-2, respectively. The Big 12 is not a strong football conference like it once was. Colorado's toughest games of last season were probably Nebraska and BYU, both of which they lost. And to me, at least, Arizona State winning the conference and getting to the playoff was the reason I don't think we should be giving automatic buys to conference champions when it's a conference like what the Big 12 looks like this year and last year. So yes, Shedeur Sanders has good numbers, and I do think it was a little unfair for him to slide all the way to the 5th round. I think he's a good quarterback. But what I think is most important here is whether you want to say he was blackballed or whether you want to say it's because of Deion, let's be honest here. Shedeur Sanders is a nepo baby. And it reminds me a little bit of what we saw from Bronny James in the NBA. And yes, Shedeur Sanders is infinitely more talented, I think, than Bronny James. But there were teams that shied away from Bronny James because either they didn't think he was good enough or they didn't want the circus that would come with it. And it was only the Lakers that took a flyer on Bronny James with 5 picks to go in the draft. And yes, Bronny James has only played 27 games for the Lakers. He spent most of the season in the development league. But the pressure that comes with being LeBron's son, the differences of how you're viewed by the media when you're the son of an all-star. When it was announced that Bronny James would enter the NBA instead of transferring away from USC, I said my piece was that I think he can stay in college and go away from California, get out of the massive shadow that's cast by LeBron James. Don't go to the team that he's on. Make your own way. Whether he's good enough to play in the NBA at some point, we don't know. But I do think Shedeur Sanders is good enough to play in this league. And now, whatever the reason why he was drafted in the 5th round, what's important now, that's in the past. All that matters now is that he take this opportunity to make a name for himself. And whether this was the reason for it or not, let this be a humbling experience for him. Say, I'm not as highly touted as I believed I was. Let that humble me. I'm now in a quarterback room with 4 other guys, one of whom is also a rookie and drafted well before me. Now is his chance to separate from his father, who is staying in Boulder, Colorado for the foreseeable future. Whatever the reason that he slid, this is his chance to make the other 31 NFL teams pay for passing on him. This is his chance to say, I can play in this league. Let me show you. He's been given an opportunity. Now he needs to make the most of it. Let me know in the comments what you think of Shedeur Sanders sliding. Do you think it's because he's just not as good as the other quarterbacks in the draft? Do you think there was a little bit something else going on? Do you think the NFL purposely pushed him down that far? Whatever the reason, let us know in the comments. Until next time, this is Empire Sports Talk. I am your host, Roman Gennaro. It's a good day to go 1-0, and I'll see you on the next one.